Namaste, welcome to Satsang. Firstly, let me apologize for the altered time. There are some commitments as a parent that I have to do that were given to me short notice. So we will be, just in case anyone didn't catch, we will be going back to the original Satsang time on a Thursday from the very next Thursday Satsang at 7 p.m. UK time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern time, back to the original as it was. So I want to talk about something a little different tonight, because again, it's something that I got caught up in my own awakening. It's something that held me back for quite some time until I really understood it. And I want to start by sharing a vision that I have, a dream that I have. Sounds all grandiose, but really it's just something that's deeply felt within my heart. You know, I often imagine this, a different world than we live in today. Same planet, but I can imagine a world where human beings are kind to each other, where human beings help each other, where kindness and love and forgiveness are perhaps the most valued qualities that we can have. And of course, it's like that here in Satsang already, but on a global scale, a world where human beings help each other, share resources, because it's common knowledge that there is more than enough for everyone. A world where we sustain our industry and our productivity from clean energy sources, from ways that help and nurture the planet. I have this vision of a world where nothing happens in that world unless it actually is of benefit to everyone involved, including the planet itself. Can you imagine a world where we all help each other when we can, or where you could knock on a stranger's door and feel safe doing that, knowing that this person is going to be friendly and loving and kind towards you? A world where it's safe for everyone to go outside at nighttime. A world where violence of any kind, mental, physical, or emotional, is a thing of the past, where we don't even remember what that is, where it seems so strange that we might have done that as a species at some point. A world where human beings and animals and plants and even insentient objects are respected for the divine essence. Everything is treated equally. Everyone is treated equally. A world where our difference in appearance is celebrated as a unique expression of our divine essence. A world where there isn't any isms, racism, sexism. A world where violence of any kind is forgotten. A world where everyone has enough and no one fears running out of anything, where everyone has a place to live and a chance to have an education, enough food to eat and clean water. And we can all have an opportunity to learn whatever we want to learn. A world where what we're learning here in Satsang is core to our education process also, as well as learning to read and write and all of that. We are taught, if we want to come to understand this, that there is only the one being appearing everywhere. A world where love in all of its expressions is valued, whether that is mutual respect, friendship. A world where we help each other with simple, mundane tasks. A world where you could speak to anyone in the local store and have a friendly, pleasant conversation. A world where there isn't any systems still that are destroying the planet or leaving a negative impact. A world where we cultivate the resources that we have and protect them, where we come to understand this planet is our home and we need to preserve it and look after it. And I've had this dream for as long as I can remember, really, but right about the time where I started to actually pursue awakening, this dream began to, sometimes even at nighttime, but just closer and closer, more and more important here, that this is what I would like to see within my lifetime, this body's lifetime at least. And maybe you have a similar dream. Maybe you could add to that dream. And I think to a large extent, you wouldn't be here listening to these words or speaking these words if we didn't have something different that we wanted. Can you imagine a world where human beings love and respect each other? Where you could say hello to everyone you meet passing by on the street. A world where it didn't really matter where you came from, what you earn, what you do for a living, what color your skin is, what your gender is, what your sexual orientation is. A world where all of that is celebrated for what it actually is, a unique expression of this self, this intelligence that we are. A world where we've forgotten how to be unkind and hateful and hurtful. A world where it's so clear to each one of us that everything we come across is our own self, that we wouldn't think of doing any harm. Our actions will come from a place of love, compassion, and wisdom. A world where there is an awakened being, at least one awakened being in every single town, where awakening is just a common thing, where it's just, that's the next thing you do. You learn to read and write and you find out what you love to do, and then you wake up to the truth, or the other way around, whichever, where it's just as normal as a child going to school, where it isn't mystical or magical anymore. It's just a necessary thing that we all do. We come to see the truth. Can you imagine a world lived from that place? What would that look like? Where change happens on a global scale by global agreement rather than by certain individuals. Where no one would support any change that doesn't support the planet and everyone on it. That would be a very different thing, wouldn't it? And I kind of had this dream really intensely, and it just began to become more and more a call to action as I was waking up. And it really began to, the reason I'm telling you all of this is it really began to make me feel divided inside. One of the most important things was this dream of this world, and I got told many times that I was just, living in fantasy land, and there'll be rainbows and unicorns in this world. And that there can't ever really be a situation like that. But it just was there in my heart anyway. Many people said it was unrealistic. As I'm sure you've heard yourself, that, there's no way that kind of thing is going to happen. So I felt more and more divided as I followed the path towards awakening. And I felt more and more selfish as well as I went further and further inside. And I was watching what was going on. I tried to avoid as much as possible watching the news at that point because I didn't like what I was seeing. And it made me feel more divided, that I should be doing something about what is happening in the world. And yet everything within my being was telling me to go inwards. If you felt that pull, obviously you have, because you're here, you're listening to this, you're watching this. Then perhaps that divided feeling. I really want to make a difference. And I really want to leave this planet in a better place than when this body was born. I want it to be in a different stage of its evolution, humanity. By the time I leave this body's done. Can we see a real change? Maybe even before then. But the overwhelming pull, draw was to go inwards to see what I actually am. And that became the most important thing. And eventually, even this kind of desire for the world to change, this vision, this dream, got put to the side for a while. But I still kind of felt guilty about that on some level. You know, it's okay, me feeling peaceful and joyful and happy and all of that, but everyone else around me is still suffering. And I'm telling this because I want to share a revelation that came as I really sat with this and tried to reconcile it. Maybe it'll help you too, because it was important to me. And the revelation was that change, that kind of world that I was looking to experience, wanting to happen, maybe it's never going to come about by some great political change or some great change in the way that the establishments and the governments and all of that happen on this planet. Maybe it's going to come about in a different way. It's going to begin to appear as this front end of a massive tidal wave of awakening that goes on within humanity. And maybe it is already happening. Maybe satsang is that revolution occurring. Maybe what I'd always wanted and felt, so drawn to was actually coming into being. It was actually in the process of manifestation, firstly through my own awakening, everyone else that's gone before, my own meaning this body mind. And that every time on this planet that a human being has clearly reflected that truth, it has influenced so many beings around them also to come to radiate that truth as well. And that maybe it was already in motion. Maybe that world that we want is already in motion now, in a process of becoming. Maybe it's just not going to come the way that we thought. It starts with our own personal revolution in our thinking process. Surely it must start from us. Surely our own peace inside and showing that that is possible is the best way to bring this about. A small and quiet revolution that builds speed, builds intensity, and begins to spread around the world from every awakened being, spreading outwards, a ripple effect of light and compassion and love and understanding and wisdom, inspiring everyone else around them. And this is happening right now. Every satsang that happens, every meditation, every person that reads a scripture or a spiritual teacher's book or watches something on YouTube or whatever it is that we're all doing, every person that forgives themselves or forgives someone else, every act of compassion that comes from a greater seeing and understanding of what we really are, is this revolution happening? And when I saw this, I got really, really excited that I'm already doing everything I possibly can to change the world. And that what I wanted to go out there and do was not some waving some banners or something like that. It was something much more intimate. It can take that form as well, of course. But maybe the next person I speak to when I go out, whether I know them or don't know them, if I'm kind to them and smile at them and give them some encouragement, or if they're unkind to me, I can understand that they're believing their thoughts, and I don't have to take that personally. That they're believing their thoughts about me or their life, and they really don't actually know me. Maybe that is the revolution that I was looking for. And if just a handful of beings on the planet do that, then this tsunami, this tidal wave that's building, if one person inspires one more being to wake up, the number of awakened beings would double. And then those inspired another doubling and another doubling. And what if this is already in motion right now? You can see this in human history. If you look back over our history, never before now has awakening been so accepted. Meditation in all of its forms, love in all the words that we call it, friendship, kindness, respect, appreciation, all of those words. Has that been actually an acceptable way for people to function? Yes, there is a lot of things we would like to change on this planet, but what if that is already in process, in progress? And I wonder if we have all realized our role in this revolution that is going on right now. You know, when you come to see that you're not just a person waking up, that you are actually the universe becoming conscious of itself, the infinite reality coming to understand its infinite nature, that cannot fail to affect everything and everyone around you when you see that. Even if the next person you meet isn't ready to realize the truth, they might be a little kinder to themselves and to other beings. They might believe in their own dreams a little bit more than they did yesterday. Who knows what effect you have on someone just by smiling as you pass by them, or speaking to the person as you buy your stuff at the shop, at the store, or understanding someone, listening to them when they really just need to be listened to, or recognizing that everyone you might meet feels inadequate and unworthy, and is just looking for some reassurance and approval and love. And do you realize that you are this revolution happening right now? Every seeker, student, aspirant, whatever we want to call ourselves, that really is trying to wake up is the planet, the universe becoming conscious of itself. Change already happening. And I'm stressing this because I kept looking at the world, waiting for something to happen. I kept looking at the news, watching for some kind act to happen, and then not seeing it and feeling disappointed. What if something much more fundamental and intimate than that is actually already going on? What if you being kind to your own self, or kinder, if that's all you can do, or wanting to be kinder, being willing to love yourself more? What if that is the shift that we've been waiting for happening? All you can do is your own self-realization, isn't it? All you can do is your own awakening, and then be that so completely that you begin to inspire everyone else around you. And you don't necessarily have to do it like this. Most people won't teach, but they will teach in their example. They will teach by their life. They will show everyone that they meet what's possible. And everyone will know there's something different about you, but they won't know really what it is. They'll just think you're generally a really nice person, fun to spend time around, you're caring. When I really got this, it really made me feel whole again. That for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to choose the world or my awakening. I didn't feel divided in that anymore. And maybe instead of looking at global change, planet-wide change, have I changed my environment today by the way I've treated people? And most importantly, have I changed my own life by the way I've treated myself today? And isn't that all we can really control right now? And as we do that, it's going to really begin to ripple outwards. It already is. I went into a local shop here, a big chain of shops that sell, well, they sell all kinds of things, but they're well known for selling books. And one of the first things that shocked me was how little the size of the store was, how few actual physical paper books were in that store. One thing that also surprised me was the amount of books that were there on meditation, on love, books by the Dalai Lama, books by other spiritual teachers, and things that I would not have expected to find on the bookshelf, the store, high street store, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Books that I started reading when I was beginning my journey about meditation and things like that. And if we look around, if we're willing to see, maybe it's already occurring. What if it, and this is a crazy thought, and I know people might call me a dreamer, but it wouldn't be the first time. But what if it's already too late to stop this global change that's in motion? And what happens when we all begin to recognize our part in that? That we're already in satsang doing the highest thing we could do to ensure that that occurs. It's so important that we see that. There's many pulls on our time as human beings, being a parent, being part of a family structure, working, and all of that. It's easy to feel that we're being selfish, or that we should be doing something else when we're sitting in meditation, or taking time out of our day to contemplate something, or whatever we're doing spiritually. It seems easy to think that way, and I did for such a long time. But hopefully, if you're really hearing these words, you'll recognize that is the most selfless thing you can do. Is your own meditation, your own seeing, your own self-inquiry. Somebody has to be the first one in your area to wake up, in your town, in your street. Why not you? And why not now? And can you imagine if, walking down the street each day, every single person that you saw was already free, liberated, smiling, happy, peaceful? Or all the problems that we experience on the planet today have disappeared. Why can't that happen in our lifetime? And isn't it inevitable as a byproduct of our waking up to the truth? How could you possibly hurt anyone or anything in any way at all when you know it is your own self? We all love our own self. We all love and want to preserve and look after our own self. And that just becomes a global thing, a universal thing. And we recognize our own self is much, much bigger than we thought. That's a natural consequence. It can't be any other way from the awakened state. So maybe I am a dreamer, but I hope you are too. And I think the world needs more dreamers right now. And also really just to recognize your part in this. That this is the most important thing that you could do, that peace and love and joy are infectious. When people see you with them, they'll want it too. And they'll believe it's possible because they'll be seeing it in you. It won't just be something they read in a book, although that's a good place to start. So that kind of segues nicely into the first question that's been emailed in that I'd like to see. I'd like to read a couple before we go to, I'll open it up for questions and sharing. This question says, Dearest Helen, could you share some words about abuse? It is theoretically clear to me that abuse needs a separate sense of a victim and can't exist in oneness. However, victims appear in the world. How can I reflect on the existence of a victim without denying its appearance with love and appreciation? So how can I reflect on the existence of a victim without denying its appearance? So when we come to see the truth that there is only the one being and that that being is everywhere at all times, and that separation has never been real, it's just been a very, very bad dream, long-standing dream, then we can begin to recognize that place, as I've been speaking about earlier, where inside our own consciousness, where we're not capable of any abuse at all, where we literally wouldn't even think that way to ourselves and to others, but also compassionate enough to recognize that separation, illusion, all of that seems extraordinarily real while it's happening, while we're caught in it, while we're believing our thoughts. We might not even know that we are. So we can also understand that what our mind is saying in those moments in our life, it can seem very, very real and true. And the illusion spins out infinitely, just like reality. That most people are caught in this walking, talking, three-dimensional, real-time, ever ongoing nightmare of believing our own thoughts and experiencing them, believing that we're not safe and all of that, believing that we need to gather more resources to ourselves to make ourselves feel safer, believing we need to try to control this moment and everyone else in it so that we can feel safer, more powerful, whatever it is that we're trying to do as human beings. So the self recognizes itself, but it also doesn't dismiss the illusion. Yes, it's illusion, but while I'm caught in my thoughts, it's going to seem real, isn't it? It's going to seem like there's a victim and the one doing, giving the abuse in whichever way that is. So we're not in denial here. We're not just going to say, well, there never was a separate self. That is true. But we can understand the effects of when we thought that was so. And we can also understand that just because we're beginning to see that that's never been so, or we have already seen there was never any separation, that the next person I meet out on the street is not yet going to see that. They're going to really believe that they're separate to us and act in those ways. So I hope that helps to kind of, we're not in denial. We're going to try to live from a place where you cannot be hurt or hurt anyone, even your body and mind, being enveloped by that field that is the self, that energy, that love, and protected. We also still then have to unravel the effects of when we thought we were a separate being. And here is one of those effects, isn't it? The more a person believes in separation, the more likely they are to act in ways that are not in our best interests. And we don't have to judge them about it. We can understand that, but move away from them also. So I hope that helps. I'll just read one more. Thank you, Helen, for the healing you give. My question concerns my husband, who has Parkinson's disease. 14 years of medication and the advance of the disease have brought on hallucinations, compulsive behavior, memory loss, and problems with what is called the executive function area of the brain. What is your view of how I can best deal with his situation? Okay. So I want to start by saying I've watched a close friend go through Parkinson's disease, suffer that, and eventually leave their body. And it is not something I would wish on anyone. So you have my sympathies, definitely. And as to how to handle this, best deal with this situation, probably the best word I can find is to embrace your authenticity. What the self is authenticity. Awakening is authenticity, meaning you're going to be at times feeling a certain way, watching your husband go through this. There's going to be certain emotions coming up, beliefs coming up, and situations where you feel in a very contracted state sometimes. There's going to be situations where you feel more hopeful, more able to deal with it, feel more peaceful. And if you can authentically be what you are in that moment, not being some spiritual ideal, if I was awake, I would be able to deal with all of this, mind says. If I was really enlightened, I would be able to slide gracefully through this experience and, manage everything with a smile on my face or something like that. But maybe awakening is authentic in that if I'm angry, I'm going to be angry. And if I'm grieving at the loss of what we used to have together, I'll grieve. And if I'm sad, I'll be sad. And if I'm peaceful, I'll be peaceful. And I'll do my best at least not to reject any part of this experience. Coming to understand that peace is also available even when I'm feeling some negative emotion. Maybe this is going to help you live from a more authentic place. And I don't know if you're doing that already or not, but authenticity for me is a life without shoulds and shouldn'ts. And things have happened in my life where there was just no way to hold together my spiritual image anymore. Life just went this way when I thought it was going to go this way. And it just broke down every ounce of energy I had to be inauthentic to hold together my image of what I thought I should be as an awakened being. And I found myself being whatever I was in that moment, whatever emotion, whatever was happening. I was just had to be that. I had no strength left to be anything other than that. So these moments have a way of showing us that, the strength in authenticity, that peace doesn't need to be absent at any point if we're not shoulding and shouldn'ting ourselves. And that will also be the best help. Obviously, you're there physically with your husband and all of that, but emotionally, spiritually, your presence, your authenticity will help him go through this as well, the best that he can. And embracing as much as you can your human nature too, not saying that that shouldn't be. You are also the self showing up as someone going through this situation and all that that involves. Peace is when we're not rejecting any part of our experience in that moment. So I hope that helps you to find a more easier path to travel through this experience that you're having. And so if anyone would like to ask a question, I'd invite you to raise your hand on Zoom, or if you'd like to share something that you're going through, or if you have your own crazy dream, I'd love to hear about it. We have some time to go through some questions. Okay, Persis, when you're ready.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Hello. So it's a coincidence you talk about this tonight.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. Just before your satsang, I was crying a lot because I realized how guilty my heart feels for. I feel like this may sound arrogant, but I feel like being awake to some extent is possible for a while already.
Mm.
But my heart feels so heavy, like feeling like leaving people behind. And and not just regular people, but I mean people who are truly lost in darkness.
Yeah.
And if I set myself free, I've resolved a lot of issues around self-worth and fear of my own power and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I take that final step, then I will burn until the end of my life, however. And then what mechanism is going to take care of those people?
Yeah. And that's how it seems, isn't it? When our mind is, as we're going through this process, for me, there was if you try to push two magnets together, there's that repulsion, isn't there, between them? There was kind of that feeling for a while about being around people who were still very lost in their thoughts, as you were saying. And as much as I had to answer this inner call to continue this awakening, there was also this deep feeling that I was leaving all of that behind and I would never go back to that. And maybe you can, I think that's what you're saying, mind is saying, yeah, but who's going to actually make the change in the world if I don't even want to be involved in the world? If I'm seeing that all of this is illusion and, that we aren't separate beings, will I even have any motivation to do anything about what's going on in the world? And I had to eventually just trust that every time I have let go of any idea, any thought, any belief, or pushed through my mind's fears anyway and gone ahead and furthered my awakening, that my life and everyone around me has gotten better somehow. That the opposite of what my mind was saying was actually what occurred. And first, the wisdom comes. The wisdom comes first of, I'm not really a separate being. I am everywhere, and everyone and everything is me. And then, as that deepens, it's kind of emerges as love then. And that love recognizes everything, like a deeper recognition of the self, not just here, but here too, that this is everything I see, everyone I see is my own self. And in this maturing, there is a re-embracing and an ability to really be around people that are still very much caught up in projecting things onto you, still really believing in separation. Everything that we've kind of struggled to get away from, we can then be in their dream, be a part of their dream of separation, but not by it ourselves and not be duty bound to project it back. Most human beings are believing their thoughts about everyone else, and it's just going backwards and forwards. So the strength and the compassion comes from that deepening into love, and that is already occurring for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be worried about this, would you?
Yes, I know. But it's
You just
still
need to hear it
like
too.
on an emotional level.
Yeah.
And I
If
have
you,
some curious question, because I had a lot of insight into why I was very harsh towards myself. And I could see why people would become cold or very like that, those kind of negative, harsh, disgusted, all those things.
yeah.
But I thought there's a point where something snaps and someone becomes indifferent. So the others are very intense, like resistance. And then suddenly the resistance falls away and they have no connection to themselves, to the part they reject. And how are they going to find that part again?
Love, love will have its way, you know, there's no stopping love. First, love emerges as knowing, as understanding, and then compassion. And you will want to eventually fall totally back in love with every part of your egoic self, your mind. And then you'll fall back in love with everyone else's mind, or just the one mind, you know, showing up as all these human beings. Because love doesn't want to, it wouldn't be love if it wanted to leave some part of it out, you know, you wouldn't be this all-inclusive self, you know, and the self doesn't see these things as bad or wrong. It just sees, okay, there's a lower frequency that's showing up as these thoughts and this emotion and that behavior. There's an action or a words that are coming from separation, but there's no wrongness or badness in that. There's just,
I don't see it
that's
as
where
bad,
it is.
but
Say
I'm
again.
afraid of those. If you still have some connection to the part you rejected, however hard or dark it is.
What
But
was it that rejected those parts, though? Was it the self or was it the ego? Could the
ego.
self ever reject anything, really? We reject ourselves only because we're still coming from separation. And that allowing everything back into yourself to dissolve into the love is part of that maturing that we were talking about. It's got to happen. It's happening now for you and for everyone here listening to this. It's enough for a while to say, you know, I'm not my mind, I'm not my body, I'm not my karmic patterns, all of that. And that's true. But then love will say eventually, but I want to be those again. I want to take all that back inside me and allow it to join the party too, to dissolve into the loving presence. Because it's made out of that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Yeah, it's not myself I worry about.
There is only yourself. There is nobody else.
Yeah, I
know that sounds like, oh, I'm just avoiding the issue, but it's also true. It's also true. What will happen out there is a mirror of what's happening in here. Always, always. Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you. Okay. So we'll take, we've got 3 hands up. We'll take those and then we will leave it there for tonight. So Natasha, when you're ready. Can you hear us, Natasha? Are you still wanting to ask a question? Okay. We'll leave it for a moment. Then we'll go to Sue. We'll maybe come back to Natasha later. When you're ready, Sue.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
A bit spontaneous this, but I'm experiencing panic attacks. And I wonder if you could speak to them Not quite sure. Yeah. Where they're coming from and what I can do about them from the little self.
So, first of all, can we just accept that you're never going to like them? So can we, I know that sounds like an obvious thing to say, but can we get rid of this idea that there's a point somewhere in your spiritual evolution where you can gracefully get through them or something like that? Can we just throw that idea out? You're never going to like them or want them or enjoy them or anything like that. Can we start from that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And can we also say and understand that at any moment you're doing the best that you can with them? And that's always the case, even if your mind disagrees. Some days you might handle it better than others, but you also don't need to judge yourself for that, do you? Can you see this idea that there's some magical thing you can do with them and you just need to find what that is, you know, something like that inside?
I tend to want to know where they're coming from.
Yeah. So that's the next thing, that the root cause of any fear at all, whether it's very mild nerves or whether it's a very extreme panic, terror, you know, that is going on, is this idea that you are a separate being. And although we may have realized this, you know, the wisdom of it, our body, to whatever degree we realize that, our body can still be showing us that not all of our being is convinced yet. And sometimes that fear can come up even stronger after you've had some seeing or even just intellectually understood. Yeah. And that's probably what's happening for you at the moment. Because we cannot really deal with it at all as a small self, as the egoic self. We just have to kind of get through it, tolerate it, all of that. So that's the next thing is, I'm never going to like this, but I can begin to appreciate that this is happening because the self, the awareness, can handle this, can deal with it on some level. And maybe this is that love emerging, that I would never really choose to feel like this, but it's happening because my seeing is deepening, that I can finally feel this now. Whatever that is, if I can only feel 20% of it in this moment, I'll do that. Or 10% or 5% today. Just the understanding helps with that, doesn't it?
Yes, it helps hugely, actually. And I think that makes complete sense because there is change. And it's like facing a different reality.
For me, after I'd had a seeing, many seeings of what I really was, there were periods of just this intense fear. And it wasn't a new fear. It was just that I could finally feel it. It was cushioned by the peace and the understanding. And there were moments where I felt like it was going to overwhelm me and I had to challenge that idea. And it'd been there as a constant background my entire life on a low level, but it was finally able to kind of come to the surface. And part of the journey for me was just understanding that I'm never going to want to go through that. And that there isn't a place inside me where I go, yay, you know, this is so much fun. But I can soften the blow with understanding why it's happening. Why is it coming up now? It doesn't mean I'm failing at this awakening. In fact, it means the opposite.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. And I think it speaks to,
Wonderful.
What's happening.
Just remember, if you can, that you're doing the best you can, always. Wonderful. Lovely to talk to you. Amy, we'll go to Amy and then we'll see if Natasha's around.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Lovely to be here with you and everyone. Yeah, I love what you were saying about the imagining. It's always a really lovely call to tune into. I have been experiencing this real dichotomy at the moment. There's like more sort of abundance of community and friendship, relationship. It's all kind of very much healed, and just even with an ex-partner is very peaceful, and you know, there's all this goodness in those ways. And then there's this cycle of the work and the finances and the lack that keep popping up.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, there's been little breakthroughs in that and things as well. I think there's kind of a little bit of a weariness about it, and I know that's probably a good thing.
It doesn't feel good though, does it? It's a good thing, but it feels terrible. Yeah.
There's just kind of like this deep surrender to, oh, the human doesn't know how to figure this out, and it's just, I've just got to go through the emotional layers of it. And so just sitting with this, the fear that comes up, and then kind of seeing it from spaciousness, or asking, you know, who is here, you know, is there anyone here? That kind of dissolves it. It just seems there's so much of it. It's just so much of it. And then there's sort of anger that comes in. There's like an anger, like a, you know, like a young anger to a parent, like, why aren't you sorting this out? So there's those two energies that I'm kind of, you know, spending time with and releasing, and you know, questioning it about safety and unworthiness and things like that. Because it is, I mean, your pointings to, you know, the body, it's just become so clear now. I've just seen again and again, you know, it just mirrors it exactly, and then releases when we get to the bottom of it. But it's so yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with it. I'm not sure if there's a question, but I just wanted to sort of bring it to you in case you had anything.
Maybe it wasn't supposed to resolve until now. Maybe, you know, you've been busy kind of, I think you used the word healing in the area of relationships, and maybe now a significant amount of attention and time was invested in that area of your life, and now maybe you can move it to this area, abundance and finances, and that's going to resolve now too, with this feeling of, you know, being weary of it, as you said. Maybe it couldn't be resolved until now, you know, and we have now the time and the attention and the energy to focus on this consistently, because other part of our life has begun to reflect abundance of love and, you know, understanding all of that. And it was like that for me, that paradoxically, when certain areas of my life really began to improve, and I was really living as this awakening in some areas of my life, that the parts where it wasn't yet reflecting just seemed intolerable. You know, it was like,
Yeah,
I don't want to go there. And why isn't this fixed already? But, you know, we've been believing these thoughts for such a long time. And we've been functioning in this mechanism of looking at our experience of what's going on, or looking at our experience of what we don't want, and using it to define ourselves for so long, haven't we? That has been such an ingrained habit that what I'm gonna think and feel about myself and how much I'm gonna value myself is directly based on what's going on in my outer experience, or not going on, as the case may be. That is a very well-grooved habit that we've got, and maybe it takes kind of a lot of our attention and energy to break through that in this area of our life. It certainly did for me. And while I was having challenges in relationships and things like that, it systematically went through every part of my life.
Yeah.
Like being a sister, being a mother, about finances, as I'm sure you've heard me speak about. It was a train wreck. Anyway, friendships, everything, every area of my life. And systematically, I didn't look like that at the time, because I was always focused on the one part of my life that wasn't working well yet, completely ignoring everywhere else where I was already living like this and going, this thing is still wrong in my life. Why isn't this? If I could have zoomed out a bit at that point, wow, this is healed, and this is healed, and this is healed, and I don't do that thing anymore, and I don't, behave that way anymore. But there is this one area where I still got to reflect clearer, and that's what's happening now.
And and I can see all of that, and I can see that it's, and with your help, we've, in the graduate program, we've done, focusing on changing our orientation practices to, towards more higher vibrational thoughts and things, and it's helped enormously. And and I know that this is fodder. I know that this is sort of this is how that gets put into practice, and it's pushing me every day to tune into that, and to change these neural pathways, and so there's through practicing with this, being forced to at times and wanting to others, it's it's pushing me deeper into the stillness, and also recognizing that, and also working on these neural pathways and where I'm putting my attention. And
let's theoretically say, and it's only theoretically, that what if this never resolves for you? What if you never allow abundance into your life? It just doesn't happen for you. And I know it's not something we want to think about, but does that change you at all? Does that change how you should think and feel about yourself? Does it change your status of awakening? Does it change any of that? Would you think of yourself differently if this resolved? Would you feel differently if this resolved and suddenly you're experiencing infinite abundance? Or,
yes.
And there's the rub. You see, there it is right there, you see. When this resolves, I will be fill in the blank,
Yeah, because it feels now like it's a practice to keep tuning into that, because I keep getting identified. Or because there's lots of fear that comes up, or a circumstance outside that kind of feels pressureful, and there's so much less reaction than there was. It's really held in spaciousness.
And are you focused on that sentence you just said, or are you still focused on how far you've got to go, allowing abundance in and all of that?
It's more the discomfort. It's more the discomfort with the fear, but it's also the ideas of myself that I'm working with. There's like, of lack in some way or unworthiness, that those feelings that come into the body, the energies that come into the body. So there's an idea of myself that's uncomfortable that I'm working with.
So is the pure awareness changing its self-definition depending on whether it's experiencing lack or experiencing abundance? Is it using any outer experience to define itself, the formlessness?
No, there's just this. There's just still this.
It's just what is, the stillness and what is appearing out of stillness. If that's lack or abundance, the stillness remains the same, doesn't it? Completely.
Yeah.
So can you be like that? That whatever this is, and it's nothing to do with me actually, because I am myself no matter what, and no outer experience or emotion or anything can actually change or, affect me in that way. It's not going to define me.
Yeah.
I don't have to be a work in progress still, even now.
Yeah.
It's only when I started to really do this that the whole thing turned around. Because I kind of accepted on some level, it's really nothing to do with me if this turns around or not. I am already that, and I'm going to stick to my guns there. And that isn't a work in progress. The self isn't a work in progress.
Yeah, I guess it still feels like I it still feels like I remember that at times, and then practice to be that.
So what this is really about, rather than money or abundance, is about self-love, isn't it? It's all right if I forget that. And it's all right if I remember that. If I start defining myself and believing thoughts again and getting caught up, it's okay. I'm doing the best I can. And if I stay as the self for 2 whole days, weeks, it's still okay. If I'm completely lost in my thoughts around it for a while, that's okay too. I'd rather not be, but I'm not going to beat myself up because that's happening.
Yeah, it's really, and I think we've talked about it before, there's kind of like this natural kind of deepening and then coming back to the nitty-gritty of life again, and there's those kind of
Always
cycles.
about self-love. As you look at a karmic pattern that's been going on for a while, and you see perhaps the spiritual work that needs to be done around it, and sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't, sometimes you can do it successfully, sometimes you can't. What are you going to say to yourself in all of those situations? And would it be what the self would say? Like, you're doing the best you can. If the self had a mantra, it'd be that, wouldn't it? I'm doing the best I can, and that's enough. The moment you consistently do that, this thing will disappear.
Yeah, I do connect with that a lot, and I it's kind of been seen like the futility of getting of adding another layer of thought onto it, and yeah, I think
best thing you can do now is forget about it as much as you can. Of course, attention is going to go back to it when you don't have enough of something, but best you can, forget about it and focus on being nicer to yourself, saying nice things about yourself, writing them down in your journal. Where can you love yourself a little bit more and accept yourself as you are right now? It'll change everything, everything when you do that in a consistent way. I know mine says that ain't going to fix the problem, but it really will.
No, I absolutely. No, I do. I do. I do. I do get that totally, Helen. Yeah, it is. It is definitely there in my toolkit. Yeah.
If I was in your position, and I have been, I would put all of my time and attention now, as much as possible, on falling back in love with yourself completely. Where are you still being unkind to yourself? It's not a question you have to verbalize and answer, but where are you still judging yourself and criticizing and saying should? And that will, it's great advice for everyone, because anything that's going pear-shaped in our life is literally because we're doing this to ourselves.
Yeah, I it's funny because I'm doing some NVC, like communication class at the moment, and sometimes it's just those energies appearing, you know. It's not like it has
Do they need to
even
go away?
words. It's so young, that energy of just frustration, or it's just kind of leaving the body. It just gets released, and
It's just a frequency.
yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah,
You're doing
thank
great.
you.
That seems to be my motto today. You're doing the best you can. You're doing great.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Wonderful. Good to talk to you.
say thank you for everything.
So Natasha, are you there or?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I couldn't figure out the mute button on time.
It's okay. It's okay.
And I got my answers, but it's still lovely to talk to you. And thank you very much for giving me this chance. So I wanted to ask about I was born into a very disturbed family life. My mother's side, especially, I recently realized that very narcissistic. I was attracting people also because I wasn't aware up until now, until I started doing work on myself, realized who, like, saw with your help and doing the practice regularly, it's coming up more and more nowadays.
Yeah.
So this thing which I thought I had dealt with, I closed the chapter. It has resurfaced, and that is with some people in my family who love to be very narcissistic, and they like to drag people in just for the fun of it, very abusive and everything. So, and kind of disturbed my peace yesterday. I was dealing with it, and I'm realizing now more and more that whatever used to disturb me just lasts for a very short while, and then I'm back to my regular self, contemplating and being happy, and just peaceful. So how do I feel repulsive even thinking that they are also a part of me. When narcissistic people can be very, very yucky.
Yeah.
And I have quite a few of them in my family. That's why I kind of have no family in a way. I've moved away from everybody mostly. And since I'm like a narcissist magnet, I kind of attract that kind of people. So I have no friends in a way. So after joining after coming here and meeting people who come to your satsang, I'm realizing people can be very normal and the people I want to be with, So it's a new kind of, it makes me feel very good. So how do I reconcile with this? Like, that narcissists, those people, they're also part of me. How do I reconcile that?
So it's a very good thing that you raise, because we all have to encounter this at some point on the pathway, don't we? That I might have seen that everything is appearing inside me, or even intellectually just know that I am infinite in nature, therefore everything I encounter is me. And part of that is encountering human beings that behave in ways that we would never choose for ourselves. You know, we're treated ways that we would never choose at all. And sometimes, in my own experience as well, those closest to us can be the most unkind. And so the way that this kind of reconcile for me, which may be helpful for you and anyone else that's going through this, is to really understand what love is, to really understand unconditional love. And my mind had an idea that unconditional love would mean that I could like these people, be around these people, and accept them completely. That at some point in my evolution, my awakening would deepen, and I'd just be able to be around anyone and feel absolutely okay with that. But really, love taught me a big lesson. What love actually is, or at least what my experience of it has been and still is, that it also includes my own self-love, my own self-respect, meaning I can love a person knowing what they really are, that they are my own self, but also respecting that I don't particularly want to be close to them or be around them. I don't have to hate them or make them wrong or try to change them, but I can also understand that this person doesn't have my best interests at heart, my well-being at heart, and that maybe I need to have some distance from them currently right now. Love will understand why that person is behaving that way too, that they're caught in their thoughts, but it will also kind of urge you to protect your own self, not from fear, but if they're not capable of transcending their thoughts about you at this moment in time, why would you put yourself in that situation? You know, and moving away emotionally, distance, physical distance, whatever you have done, is an act of self-love in a way too, isn't it? Also, so very long way of saying you can love someone, but you don't necessarily like them or want to spend time with them. They're very different things, aren't they? What unconditional love actually is different to what we think it is. There are people that I've had to move away from, and I love them deeply. I know what they are, but I wouldn't want to particularly spend much time with them.
Yeah.
And
it's like wrestling with pigs. You know, I'm sorry to.
Yeah.
It's like being with those. I mean, especially with narcissistic type of people, it's like wrestling with pigs. Like you cannot reason, or you kind of lose your whatever. In a way, they have been a part of my awakening too. They pushed me into.
Absolutely, they're the biggest teachers.
Thank them. Yeah. Best teachers, but I want to thank them from a distance. I don't want to. And
that's okay, isn't it? Our outer experience is a reflection of how we're talking to ourselves inside. So as you love yourself more, either, you know, as you're judging yourself less, criticizing yourself less and less, as we were talking about with Amy, either these people are going to change and behave differently around you, or they will just move away from you. You won't be able to be in the same space as each other. Understanding that they're believing what they think about you and themselves, not anything actually to do with you. They don't really know you. They've never met you, which is an incredible thing to say when it's your own family, but they've never actually met you. They've met their thoughts about you.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that last one of the satsangs you said that we'd never have met anybody really in a way, or just because we always meet with what the thought about them, it's not the real person. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Yeah.
And you know, maybe this will resolve and come back together, maybe it won't, but what's the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for them right now? And it's really just to not keep this pattern going between you, this way of being with each other, isn't it? What can you do to step out of that? And it sounds like you are doing, and what's good for you will also be the best thing for them. Maybe they're ready to transcend this too, maybe they're not, but either way, your own peace is going to be undisturbed then. You know, liking someone, wanting to spend physical time with them is different to loving them. They're not the same. And even if I dislike someone, it's not, I don't like this person. It's like, I don't particularly want to be around that level of their evolution, you know, rather than a particular person, because they're not a person either. It's a different way to hold it, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. I want to say a little bit more. I sometimes something in me feels happy. I would say. I mean, I'm not. I feel. Don't want to feel guilty saying that, but a part of me feels happy when they suffer. You know. I mean, it's still now. I mean, part of me wants to see that they suffer. How do I reconcile that to the? I mean,
That is just something that our mind does, isn't it?
yeah.
It tries to feel better, and sometimes the way our mind tries to feel better is by noticing someone else isn't feeling better. If you could just kind of look at that and say, you know what, every single human being has those thoughts, don't they, at some point? And I don't need to judge myself for that, because this is just my mind doing its thing. That's what it does. You know, if those people did start to feel better, your mind will start to say, well, you don't feel as good as they do. And it would do the same thing in reverse. You know, it would just, it's always in comparison. It's always comparing two things, mind. How this person is and how I would like them to be, you know, or how this person is and how I am compared to that, how I am compared to how, it's always in comparison. This is just one of the ways that it keeps itself alive, by comparing, doesn't it, this thought process. Do you have to judge yourself for that? Do you have any control over that, really? Not at all. Mind thinks what it thinks, you know. And you've been remarkably honest and open about it, which is amazing, because we all have those ideas. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, it helps. Yes.
Mind
You help a
thinks
lot.
all kinds of crazy stuff. If we could, if all of our thought process was exposed for everyone to see, that would be like, we would all be so embarrassed, wouldn't we? But really, do we have any control over that in a direct way? Not at all, but only in an indirect way. The more I don't judge myself for this kind of thing, the less I'll have those kind of thoughts. How can judgment of others ever stop when we're judging ourselves for it happening? It's just never going to change, is it, like that?
Yeah.
You can relax and chill out. There's nothing you need to do about it. Just, again, the motto for tonight, you're doing the best you can already.
Yes, that helps. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.
Okay, lovely. So that's a good place to leave it for this evening. And I just want to say thank you for your presence, your contribution, and your love. Namaste.